All right, what is up, guys? So, if you are local to the Southeast, specifically to Tennessee, then the con that's coming up this weekend may be relevant to you, and that is Connooga in Chattanooga. And this is one of the cons I went to very early on in my con experiences, way back when, like Dragon Con AWA, like one of the very first ones. In fact, it was the fourth different con that I went to in February-ish of 2009. And I went for the entire weekend four separate times: 2009, 10, 11, and 12. And then in 2013 went to Comic-Con for the first time, because as I established, Connooga and Comic-Con used to be on the exact same weekend, and eventually I just wanted to do the other con instead of doing the same one back to back, especially because there were a couple of particular things I was looking forward to doing at Comic-Con that I was missing by continuing to go to Connooga. So I'll tell about all those stories, though. So Tennessee has quite a few conventions, only a few of which are especially noteworthy. Just wait till we get to the MTAC video, trust me. But Connooga is one of those that, while small, has definitely stood the test of time. There aren't any cons in Tennessee that really rival the size of any of the big Georgia cons I've reviewed so far, but or even Comic Con for that matter. But Connooga had a very unique appeal to it. Part of that appeal was the fact that the venue was so striking and unique and different for a convention venue. And this, it goes without saying that this convention was not really focused around anime. This was specifically a sci-fi con, and so the demographic of people that would show up to it were primarily your Dragon Con people in the off season, because Dragon Con was always Labor Day weekend, and so having something in the wintertime was a huge relief for those Georgia and Tennessee locals that are in like the Star Wars groups and the Doctor Who groups and all that other stuff. And that was typically the representation of people that you saw there. But the thing that was cool about Connooga's venue was it was at the historic Chattanooga Choo Choo Hotel, which, as you know, the main lobby of the hotel is the actual train station part of it, with the lobby and a restaurant attached to it, and then the rest of it is this massive train yard with different hotel blocks interlaced throughout the property as a whole. And then at the very back of the property is the Track 29 building, which essentially was your convention hall building. And so what this resulted in is having a very wide spread out venue where you'd have to walk across this massive parking lot to get to panels. There were even panels inside of train cars. I vividly remember Brad, my friend I keep mentioning on this series, where he had a Naruto panel inside of a train car, which was pretty hilarious. One of those train cars was also like a little pizza joint. There was a train car that had GameStop was there doing a promotional thing one year for the con, and I vividly remember Bioshock 2 was playing on the TV. That was 2010 when that came out. It was the second Connooga was playing on the TV while they were doing the presentation and everything. It was pretty cool. The thing about Connooga, though, in terms of content, is you do have or you did, I guess. The thing about Connooga, though, today is that it has since then changed venues. So it's no longer at the historic Chattanooga Choo Choo Hotel. Instead, it's at the Chattanooga Convention Center downtown. And in my personal opinion, that is a far less viable venue for this convention. Now, it does make more sense as a convention because it is a convention space with a big long hallway. It's all indoors. You have a big area, like a big warehouse looking area for a proper dealer's room and a proper game room. It's a lot more condensed down. It does make a lot more sense that way. The problem is I think it just loses a lot of its appeal, and we'll kind of go into how that impacted the con a little bit later. But let's go back all the way to Connooga 2009. So the crazy thing about this con is I had already known Brad and Taylor from Dragon Con 2008 at this point, so we had already known them for a while. And then my very first convention friend, Sam, was up there with me, and just a lot of people I had already known from the previous cons I had been to in 2007 and 2008. But I was there when Brad met, who is soon to be his wife, April, at this convention, is when they met. And I'll never forget on Sunday of that con, there was a dodgeball match on the inside of one of the panel rooms, and they had the audience up on the rafters, and poor April was standing up there with a prop sword that she had kind of blocking her face so that the ball wouldn't hit her in the face, and actually one did, and rather than the sword protecting her, the crossguard kind of went into her face like this, and they had to call off the match because she was injured, but she was okay. But it was one of those things where um, you could tell that they didn't really think about those things beforehand, like they didn't really have that whole thing prepared, or they didn't really think it through all the way. Another thing was in that exact same room the night before was a rave. And I can only describe this rave as being a rave in a broom closet, essentially, because the room it was in was very tiny. Conventions kind of have a reputation for their raves, and that being like a big draw to people who are just interested in drinking and partying. And Connooga is a party con, or at least was during that time. I will definitely say that. But this this room was definitely not viable for a rave because it was so small. I'm not that interested in raves at all. I've kind of grown out of that phase, and even back in the day, I was just kind of just joining in just to be social with people that I knew that were going. I didn't really have any interest in going, but I remember the DJ who was doing the music, and like you got to remember, this is like this is like peak, like mid to late early 2000s. So songs like Sandstorm were like the shit back then, and so like when that came on, we were all going crazy and jumping up and down, and that was like the early con experience back then. And but I remember the DJ got up and left the music playing, and it went to a song that he didn't intend to play, and it was "Blow Me Away" by Breaking Benjamin that was on the Halo 2 soundtrack. And we just started jamming out to that song. Where we're like, we don't care it's that it's the wrong song. We just started jamming out to it. We had a good time. The dealer's room in the Track 29 building was honestly pretty cool. It was nice, and it was large. It was a good size. It was easy to move around in there. It was easy to kind of shop and buy what you were looking for. A lot of the same vendors that would regularly attend Dragon Con would go and represent with booths there, so there's a lot of really cool stuff to buy. There was also a lot of kind of niche celebrities there, like not a lot of guests, but a lot of really niche people that you appreciated being there. Like it was mostly like writers, authors, actors, and things like that. But it was some really cool people that did show up there. Famously, the actress Tara Strong was there, and then there were some pretty prolific authors there as well, if I remember correctly. The in terms of cosplay, again, there wasn't. I'm trying to think of what the biggest thing was in terms of cosplay at this con. I think the Tennessee anime community and their representation at this con made it seem like there was more anime than what the convention would otherwise intend to attract. But I remember, like, again, that was like peak Naruto and Bleach era back then. So Brad's group and all them doing Naruto and Bleach, and me and my group basically doing Final Fantasy stuff. I think that was where I first debuted my Auron cosplay from Final Fantasy X, and I know it was where I debuted my Vincent cosplay from Final Fantasy VII. And Vincent was probably one of the hottest cosplays I've ever worn because it's like 3 layers of black. It's a red cloak that comes up to here on my neck. It's a long black wig and a headband. It's like leather gloves. It is miserably hot. But also Connooga is literally up in the mountains in February, so it's infamous for being very cold. So that was kind of a relief, but some people were otherwise freezing outside. Lots of really cool stories out of Connooga, including taking the little shuttle bus from downtown Chattanooga to go from the venue to different restaurants around town and stuff like that. And then the venue later being repurposed for the convention Anime Blast Chattanooga, which we'll talk about in a much later video. But the reason why they had to change venues, and this is something that Anime Blast suffered for as well, is that the Chattanooga Choo Choo Hotel property was bought out by some different contracting agencies, and so different pieces of the venue were being changed into low-income housing and apartments. So different places around the hotel were no longer viable. So famously, the Track 29 building was being converted. Several of the hotel blocks, including the biggest hotel block that is like, it's like 3 stories tall and it has like an interior courtyard with a pool. That was like the big party area. All that was being renovated and turned into apartments and all that. And so they only had one of those isolated blocks was the hotel proper at this point. And so they were forced to reallocate to the convention center. And this is where the problems start. So if you go to Connooga this coming weekend, it will be at that convention center, which is fine. Again, the problem is, though, is that you kind of run out of things to do really quick because there's only like a couple of video rooms, and there's the big dealers room, which is nice. There's a gaming room, which is a pretty good size, but it just seems like when you kind of condense everything down together, you lose that charm, and it just kind of feels a little bit more like there's less to do because you kind of run out of things to do really quick. Another thing, it was 2017 when me and my friend Cheyenne decided to go up there for just the Saturday, just for a couple hours to see what was going on, see what it was like, and we had a good time. Half the fun was just us hanging out and the hour-long car drive up there and just chatting and all that. The biggest problem we had in 2017 was the badge prices. So again, we wanted to go for Saturday only. For Saturday only, $70 is what they were charging for the badges. $70. That is more than some cons charge for their entire weekend. And I get that all conventions are more expensive than they used to be. I guess it's just an inflation thing. Like, all of their badges have gone up in price over the years, and that's to be expected. But $70 for Saturday only? I can see that for the whole weekend, but you know how much it was for Sunday only? $10. And so if you look at those prices back to back, it's just ridiculous. Like, why not make it like 40 for one and 35 for the other? Like, that I can at least understand. And the worst part about it is people were lobby-conning the hell out of this con. And I do not advocate for that at all, first of all. But we even looked around the corner there was nobody checking for badges to go into the game room like there was in the dealer's room. And there was a open section of wall behind the game room into the dealer's room, and so you could walk from in the game room with nobody checking, and then walk from the game room into the dealer's room and spend 2 or 3 hours in there, and nobody would even notice. And so, again, I strictly do not advocate lobby conning. I think if you're not really contributing to that con's success, you don't really have any reason to be there. But that's a whole rabbit hole I don't want to get into right now. But if the badges were not so expensive, then they wouldn't have that problem. Like, if the Saturday only badge was not that much, then it wouldn't have been nearly as much of an issue. But other than that, I'm glad Connooga is still around. I'm glad it's still doing well. It's maintaining roughly around the same amount of attendance, and I know a lot of people that organize it and run it, and they work really hard on it, and they're very, very ambitious about getting new ideas and new things going to keep the con going into the future, and I hope that it continues to do well. I will probably be there this Saturday if anybody is going, anybody wants to meet up or chat or anything, and I will definitely let you guys know after the fact how I feel about Connooga this year. Maybe it's improved, maybe it's the same, who knows. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time, probably with the MomoCon review.